Dorothy Dottie Campbell stared at her reflection in the bathroom mirror, barely recognizing the woman who stared back. At 58, she had aged a decade in just 2 years since Thomas's death. Silver threads now dominated her once auburn hair. New lines had etched themselves around her eyes and mouth. Not the laugh lines that had crinkled when Thomas made her smile, but deeper furrows carved by grief and worry. "What would you think of me now, Tom?" she whispered, touching the glass. The alarm clock's insistent beeping broke her reverie. Her fourth job interview this month awaited. She'd once been the marketing director for a national retail chain. Now she was begging for entry-level positions where managers half her age looked at her with polite dismissal in their eyes. Dottie dressed methodically in her sole remaining professional outfit. A navy blazer Thomas had always said made her look powerful, a cream blouse with a coffee stain she'd carefully positioned under the lapel, and a skirt she'd taken in twice as grief had whittled away her appetite. The house around her, the three-bedroom colonial she and Thomas had lovingly maintained for 30 years of marriage, was showing signs of neglect she couldn't afford to address. The kitchen faucet dripped. The porch steps creaked dangerously. The foreclosure notice that had arrived yesterday sat on the kitchen counter. 60 days to vacate. "Mom, you're up early." Matthew stood in the doorway, his 16-year-old frame somehow both lanky and solid, so much like his father that sometimes it hurt to look at him. His shoes, she noticed with a pang, were splitting at the seams. "Another interview," she said, attempting brightness. "Marketing coordinator at Westfield Industries." "That's great," Matthew said, reaching for the cereal. "You'll get this one for sure." "Of course I will." The lie hung between them like frost. "There's lunch money on the counter," she added, "and Susan called last night about her tuition bill." "I'll handle it," Dottie promised, though she had no idea how. Her daughter's college education had been Thomas's dream. "That's what the future is for," he'd said when they started the education fund the day Susan was born. Now that future was here, and Thomas was gone. The drive to Westfield Industries took her past the hospital where Thomas had spent his final weeks. Cancer had claimed him quickly. Diagnosis to death in 8 brutal months that drained their savings, their retirement, and left Dottie with medical bills that still arrived monthly. Each one a fresh reminder of loss. The interview went exactly as the previous 3 had gone. The hiring manager, a woman at least 15 years younger than Dottie, smiled too kindly throughout. "You have impressive experience, Mrs. Campbell, but I worry you might be overqualified for this position." Overqualified, the corporate euphemism for too old, too desperate, too expensive to insure. "I assure you I'm looking for stability, not advancement," Dottie said, maintaining her professional smile. "I'd be committed to this role long term." "We'll be in touch by the end of next week," the manager said, already standing to usher her out. In her car, Dottie sat perfectly still for exactly 60 seconds. No tears, no screams, just 1 minute of allowing defeat to wash over her before rebuilding her armor. Her phone chirped with a text from Matthew. "How'd it go?" "Great," she typed back. "Would you stick with us through Dottie's journey? If you've ever felt like life had pulled the rug out from under you, share your thoughts in the comments below. Now, let's see what happens next." The radio played softly as she drove, a talk show where a woman discussed how she'd built a successful business buying and selling vintage items. "Sometimes treasure is hiding in plain sight," the woman was saying. "You just have to know where to look." Dottie reached to change the station when a billboard caught her eye. "Storage auction today. Treasures await. 11 Hamas a.m. sharp." A memory surfaced. Thomas in his hospital bed during one of his more lucid days holding her hand. "Sometimes you have to dare to go against conventional expectations, Dot. That's how you truly live, not just exist." Before she could reconsider, Dottie took the exit toward Timberline Storage. The facility appeared ahead, a sprawling complex of identical metal units behind a chain-link fence. The parking lot was already half full. Dottie checked her appearance in the rearview mirror, pinching color into her cheeks before grabbing her purse with the precious envelope inside. $340, her entire buffer for groceries and essentials for the week. The facility office was cramped but warm. A woman in her late 60s looked up from a computer. Her name tag read Martha Manager. "Here for the auction?" she asked. Dottie nodded. "Yes. I've never done this before. How does it work?" $25 registration fee gets you a bidder's paddle. You view units from the doorway only. No going inside, no touching until you've paid. All sales final. Units must be emptied within 48 hours. As Martha explained the rules, Dottie noticed the woman studying her with knowing eyes. "First time?" Martha asked more gently. "Is it that obvious?" "We all start somewhere," Martha said. "I reinvented myself at 60 after my Harold passed. Sometimes life forces us to find new paths." Outside, about 30 people had gathered. Dottie studied them surreptitiously. Mostly men, mostly middle-aged with a weathered look of professional scavengers. An older man with a military bearing sidled up beside her. "First auction?" he asked kindly. Dottie nodded. "Charlie Winters," he offered his hand. "Vietnam vet, retired school teacher, storage auction enthusiast for 15 years now." "Dorothy Campbell." "Dottie," she replied. "Just curious." "Everyone starts curious," Charlie said. "Word of advice? Set yourself a limit and stick to it. Easy to get caught up in auction fever." Martha's whistle pierced the air. "All right, folks, 12 units today. Same rules as always. Let's begin." The first unit contained furniture, a leather sectional, oak dining set, bedroom suite. The bidding quickly climbed to $800, then $1,200. Charlie explained the process in whispered commentary, pointing out the professionals and their specialties. By Unit 10, Dottie's feet ached. She was considering leaving when Martha announced the next lot. Unit 47. Previous owner stopped payment 6 months ago. The metal door rolled up with a screech, revealing dozens of black contractor bags stacked floor to ceiling. Some had split open, revealing glimpses of fabric. The crowd's energy noticeably dimmed. "The garbage bag special," someone muttered. Charlie grimaced. "Probably an eviction cleanout." Dottie stepped closer, peering into the dimness. The bags weren't flimsy kitchen varieties, but heavy-duty contractor bags, the kind Thomas had used when they moved. More importantly, she noticed something others didn't: the careful way some bags were tied, the methodical stacking. This wasn't a hasty eviction. Someone had cared enough to protect what was inside. "Starting bid at $25, Martha announced. Silence, no paddles rose. "25 going once." $50, Dottie called, her paddle suddenly in the air. Heads turned. Charlie looked at her with surprise. "50 for Unit 47, Martha confirmed. "Do I hear 75? A tall man in an expensive suit who had been observing from the periphery suddenly stepped forward. "75, he said smoothly, raising his paddle. Number 17. 75 from bidder 17. "Do I hear 100? "100, Dottie countered, heart racing. The man in the suit, silver-haired, around 60, with cold eyes, studied her with sudden interest. 150, he said. Charlie touched her elbow. "Are you sure about this? You can't see what's in those bags." 200, Dottie called, ignoring Charlie's concern. A murmur rippled through the crowd. This didn't happen, not for bags of unknown content. 250, the suited man countered immediately. Martha looked genuinely confused. "Bidders, are you certain? You can't see inside those bags." 300, Dottie said, feeling lightheaded. It was almost her entire reserve. The suited man's jaw tightened. He stared at Dottie for a long moment, then lowered his paddle. "All yours," he said coldly. 300 going once, going twice, sold to bidder 23. The gavel fell, leaving Dottie with $40 to feed her family for the next week. The crowd dispersed toward the final unit, but Dottie remained rooted, staring at her purchase. Charlie lingered beside her. "I hope you find something good in there," he said, genuine concern in his voice. The suited man approached as Martha brought over the paperwork. "Victor Harrington," he introduced himself with a cold smile. "I'd be interested in purchasing the unit's contents from you." "Say $1,000. No need to even inspect what you bought." Dottie looked from the storage unit to Victor's calculating eyes. "No, thank you," she said firmly. "I think I'll see what I purchase first." Victor's smile tightened. "You don't know what you just bought," he said quietly before walking away. When Dottie arrived home, Matthew was waiting. His eyes widened when she explained where she'd been. "You spent $300 on garbage bags?" he asked incredulously. "Mom, that was our food money." "It wasn't an impulse, Matthew," she said with more confidence than she felt. "Sometimes you have to take risks." Together, they returned to the storage unit with Thomas's old work gloves, box cutters, and several plastic bins. Dottie spread a tarp just outside the unit's entrance and pulled on gloves as Matthew watched skeptically. She selected the nearest bag and dragged it onto the tarp, carefully slicing along one side. Inside, neatly folded women's clothing emerged, not just any clothing, but a Chanel blazer with tags still attached. Original price, $2,400. A thrift store tag read $49.99, never worn. "Oh my God," Dottie whispered, removing the blazer to reveal more clothing beneath. A silk blouse from St. John, dress pants from Armani, each item carefully folded despite being stuffed in a garbage bag, many still bearing original tags or thrift store prices. Matthew's skepticism evaporated. "Mom, this is designer stuff." They pulled another bag forward, this one heavier. Inside, more women's clothing, higher-end pieces, a leather jacket from Coach, a cashmere sweater from Burberry, a cocktail dress with a Nordstrom label. Original price $650, thrift tag $74.99. The third bag yielded a significant upgrade, 6 handbags nestled among more clothing. Dottie recognized the distinctive pattern of a Coach bag immediately. The particular purse, a buttery leather hobo style, looked barely used. "Is it real?" Matthew asked, suddenly interested. "I think so," Dottie said, examining the stitching and hardware. "My sister saved for months to buy one years ago." As they continued exploring, a pattern emerged. These weren't random belongings hastily packed during an eviction. This was a carefully curated collection, systematically stored. In the 6th bag, they found a small envelope containing photographs and business cards. Eleanor Fairchild, senior political event consultant, with a Washington, D.C. address. The photographs showed a well-dressed older woman at various social functions, charity galas, political fundraisers, community events. Eleanor appeared to be in her 60s or 70s in the most recent photos, with elegantly styled silver hair and impeccable posture. "Mom," Matthew said, holding up a photo. "Look at this." The image showed Eleanor standing beside an older man in military dress uniform adorned with medals, his arm protectively around her waist. They stood on what appeared to be the White House lawn. Dottie turned the photo over. Written in elegant script, "Robert and me, Veterans Recognition Ceremony 2018. A knock at the storage unit door made them both jump. Victor Harrington stood there watching them. "Finding anything interesting?" he asked smoothly. "Can I help you, Mr. Harrington?" Dottie asked, standing to block his view of their discoveries. "I've reconsidered my offer. $3,000 for everything in the unit. No questions asked?" "I'm not interested in selling," Dottie said firmly. Victor's pleasant facade slipped. "You don't understand what you're dealing with. Some of these items may be fakes or stolen. You could face legal issues." "Thank you for your concern," Dottie replied coldly, "but I'll take my chances." After Victor departed, Matthew looked at his mother with new respect. "Who do you think she was? This Eleanor person?" Dottie studied the photograph of Eleanor and Robert. Someone important, she said softly, and I think we've only scratched the surface of her story. Over the next week, Dottie and Matthew transformed their living room into a sorting center. Clear plastic bins replaced the black bags, each labeled with categories. Designer clothing size 6, designer clothing size 8, Coach purses, costume jewelry, fine jewelry. Susan drove home from college that weekend, bringing expertise gleaned from her fashion-obsessed roommate. These are definitely authentic, Susan confirmed, examining a Coach bag's interior. And these clothes, Mom, some of these pieces are collector's items now. While the clothing and accessories held obvious value, it was Eleanor's personal papers that fascinated Dottie. Business documents revealed Fairchild Consulting was a thriving enterprise specializing in event planning for political and charitable organizations from the 1980s through 2018. She organized fundraisers for senators, governors, even presidents, Dottie marveled, reading through client letters. Listen to this. Thank you for coordinating the senator's fundraising dinner. Your attention to detail made the evening a tremendous success. We raised over $2 million for the campaign. Despite these promising discoveries, pressure mounted. The bank sent a final notice. $5,300 needed within 10 days to halt foreclosure proceedings. Susan's university warned that without tuition payment, she couldn't register for next semester's classes. I could take a semester off, Susan offered. Work full-time and come back later. Absolutely not, Dottie insisted. Your education comes first. That's what your father wanted. Matthew had his own struggles. At dinner one night, he revealed he'd been bullied at school for his worn clothes and outdated phone. It's fine, Mom, he said, seeing her face fall. Those guys are jerks anyway. Dottie felt the familiar weight of failure pressing down. Thomas had trusted her to care for their children. She was letting them all down. With Susan's help, Dottie listed several Coach bags on an online auction site. The response was immediate, but problematic. Potential buyers questioned their authenticity, demanding proof of purchase she couldn't provide. A local consignment shop rejected the first bag she brought in. Without provenance, I can't risk it, the owner explained. There are too many good fakes out there. Have you ever faced doubters when you knew you were right? Would you have persevered like Dottie or taken Victor's offer? Share your thoughts in the comments below and subscribe to our channel for more inspiring stories like this one. Victor appeared at her door that evening, as if sensing her discouragement. $3,000, he repeated, cash, no questions asked. How did you find my address? Dottie demanded. Victor smiled. I have resources, Mrs. Campbell. I'm simply trying to save you from wasting your time and potentially facing legal issues. Some items in that unit could have complicated ownership histories. The threat was thinly veiled, but Dottie stood firm. The answer is still no. After he left, Dottie called Charlie, whose number she'd gotten on auction day. There's a man named Victor Harrington who seems very interested in what I found. Victor Harrington, Charlie repeated. The name's familiar. Let me ask around. Meanwhile, Dottie continued sorting through the unit's contents. In one bag, she discovered medical records. Eleanor Fairchild, diagnosed with early-onset dementia in 2018. Treatment notes and care facility documentation told a heartbreaking story. Eleanor's condition deteriorated rapidly following her husband's death. By 2019, she required full-time memory care. The most recent documents, dated 8 months ago, confirmed her transfer to Meadowbrook Care Center. A death certificate followed shortly after. She died alone, Dottie whispered, deeply moved by this woman she'd never met, but whose life was unfolding before her through possessions and papers. In another carefully wrapped bundle, they found military documents and commendations belonging to Colonel Robert Edward Fairchild, United States Army. His service records showed a distinguished career spanning Korea and Vietnam, with decorations including a Purple Heart and Bronze Star. The funeral program revealed Colonel Fairchild had died 3 years earlier with a full military burial at Arlington National Cemetery. Eleanor was listed as his wife of 47 years, along with two children, James and Elizabeth Fairchild. Children, Dottie said softly. Eleanor had children. Then why didn't they claim her things? Among Robert's papers, they discovered something unexpected. Correspondence suggesting disputes between James and Elizabeth over their mother's care and estate. A letter from Eleanor's attorney mentioned ongoing disagreements making it difficult to resolve outstanding matters, including the storage unit contents. Family discord. How many estates had been fractured by it? When her own father died, her brothers didn't speak for a year over a disputed collection of vintage fishing gear. Eleanor's story grew clearer. A successful woman who built a business and political network, who lost her beloved husband and then her own mind, whose children became entangled in disputes while their mother's treasures sat forgotten in a storage unit. The most remarkable discovery came wrapped in blue velvet, a small wooden box containing a brooch. Dottie opened it carefully to reveal a pearl and diamond piece nestled against navy satin. Accompanying documentation made her gasp. "Certificate of Authenticity," she read aloud. "Pearl and diamond brooch formerly belonging to First Lady Patricia Nixon, acquired from White House estate sale, 1985. This wasn't just a valuable jewelry piece. It was a historical artifact with provable provenance, connecting it directly to a First Lady. Their next discovery proved equally astonishing. Another small box contained a gold compact with an inscription, "To Eleanor, with gratitude for your service to our nation. Nancy Reagan, 1987. "Mom," Susan whispered, "these aren't just valuable items. These are pieces of American presidential history." Charlie called back the next day. "I asked around about Victor Harrington. He's a high-end collector who specializes in political memorabilia. Very wealthy, not entirely scrupulous about how he acquires pieces for his collection." "That explains his interest," Dottie mused. "There's more," Charlie continued. "Martha at Timberline says a man named James Fairchild has been asking about the unit. Said he only recently discovered his mother's storage facility payments had lapsed. Eleanor's son, looking for his mother's possessions, months too late. Charlie's wife, Abigail, was a retired antiques appraiser. Bring your most unusual pieces over," he suggested. "She'd be happy to take a look." Abigail Williams was a stately woman of 72, with a jeweler's loop around her neck and half-moon glasses perched on her nose. She examined the Nixon brooch and Reagan compact with reverent care. "These are absolutely authentic," she confirmed. "With their documentation and provenance, they could be worth tens of thousands each to the right collector." "No wonder Victor was so persistent," Dottie said. "You need to be careful," Abigail warned. "Men like Victor Harrington don't give up easily when there's something valuable at stake." With Abigail's guidance, Dottie began selling items through reputable channels, designer clothing through high-end consignment, handbags through authenticated resale platforms. The money started flowing in, not a fortune yet, but enough to begin addressing their most pressing needs. Most significantly, Dottie started keeping the Nixon brooch and Reagan compact in a safe deposit box, along with other potentially valuable historical items, until she could determine their best disposition. As they worked deeper into the unit, a heavy black trash bag, different from the others, yielded Eleanor's most personal archives, photo albums, scrapbooks, and a leather-bound journal. The journal revealed Eleanor's private thoughts during her final lucid years. Entries from after Robert's death expressed grief, loneliness, and increasing awareness of her cognitive decline. "Robert has been gone 2 years today. The children visited, but the tension between them makes these occasions more stressful than comforting. James believes Elizabeth is only interested in her inheritance. Elizabeth thinks James mismanaged my affairs during my hospital stay. Neither sees what their father would. That love matters more than things." The entries grew more poignant as Eleanor's handwriting deteriorated. I can feel my mind slipping away like water through open fingers. Soon these memories will be gone, but the treasures remain. I hope whoever finds them will see beyond their market value to the love and history they represent. Dottie closed the journal, tears streaming down her face. In Eleanor's last coherent thoughts, she had anticipated exactly what happened. A stranger finding her possessions, learning her story. Martha from Timberline Storage called. "Mrs. Campbell, I wanted to let you know that James Fairchild has been asking about you. He's Eleanor's son." Dottie had been dreading this moment but knew it was inevitable. "Did you give him my contact information?" "No, but he left his card, hoping you might call him." After careful consideration, Dottie decided to reach out proactively. She called the number on James Fairchild's business card and arranged to meet at a local cafe the following day. That evening, she prepared carefully, selecting photographs and documents to bring, including one of Richard's lesser military medals as proof of provenance. The truly valuable items remained secured in her safe deposit box. Would you have contacted James Fairchild if you were in Dottie's situation? Or would you have kept the treasures for yourself? Hit the like button if you're enjoying Dottie's journey and leave a comment with your thoughts. James Fairchild cut an imposing figure as he entered the cafe, tall, silver-haired, impeccably dressed in a tailored suit. Dottie recognized Eleanor's eyes in his face and Robert's military bearing in his posture. His handshake was firm but not aggressive, his smile professional rather than warm. "Mrs. Campbell, thank you for agreeing to meet. Please call me Dottie." After ordering coffee, James addressed her directly. "I understand you purchased my mother's storage unit." "Yes, at auction 3 months ago." "I see." His expression revealed little. "And now you're selling these items through your business?" "Some items, yes," she acknowledged, "but I've kept personal effects separate, particularly family photographs and your father's military honors." That seemed to surprise him. "That's unexpectedly considerate." "They're part of your family history," Dottie said simply. "They belong with you if possible." The server's arrival created a momentary pause. Dottie used the interruption to retrieve the folder she'd brought, removing several photographs. "I thought you might like to see what I found. This appears to be your parents' wedding day." "Yes," James said softly. "Dad always kept this in his wallet." Dottie passed another image. Robert in full dress uniform receiving a commendation. Eleanor beaming beside him. "This seems to be from a military ceremony in the 1980s. Distinguished Service Medal presentation?" James nodded. "I was in college then." For several minutes, Dottie shared selected photographs, watching as James's professional facade softened with each image. His responses became less guarded, more personal. Finally, Dottie removed the military medal she'd brought. "This is just one example of your father's military honors. There are many more, including his Purple Heart and Bronze Star." James stared at the medal, then at Dottie. Genuine emotion finally broke through his controlled exterior. "Why did you contact me?" he asked directly. "You legally own everything in that unit. You could have sold it all." "Because some things shouldn't be bought and sold," Dottie answered. "Your father served his country with distinction. His honors should be with his family." James sighed deeply. "Mrs. Campbell, Dottie, I owe you an explanation. After my father died, my mother began showing signs of dementia. It progressed rapidly, complicated by grief. The controlled exterior cracked further as painful memories surfaced. My sister Elizabeth and I disagreed about her care, fundamentally and persistently. Elizabeth wanted mother in assisted living near her in Florida. I thought she should remain in Virginia with in-home care. We argued while mother declined." "That must have been devastating," Dottie offered. "We had to liquidate most of her assets to fund her care. The house sold, furniture auctioned or donated, the storage unit." He hesitated. That was where we placed items we couldn't decide about immediately. Mother's personal belongings, Dad's military things, household goods neither of us had room for. And then we kept fighting, James admitted, over money, over Mother's care, over old grievances that suddenly seemed urgent. The storage unit became symbolic of our inability to cooperate. Neither would go without the other. Neither would compromise on dividing contents. The storage payment arrangements lapsed during legal shuffling. By the time I realized, it was too late. The explanation rang true. Not neglect born of indifference, but the tragic consequence of family dysfunction during crisis. I understand, Dottie said quietly, thinking of her own siblings' disputes after their father's death. You're being extraordinarily gracious about this, James said. Most people would simply profit from our family dysfunction and move on. I lost my husband 2 years ago, Dottie replied. Cancer. It left me with 2 children to support, a mountain of medical debt, and barely enough skills to stay afloat. She paused, surprised by her willingness to share such personal details. That storage unit saved my family from financial ruin, but in the process of cataloging your mother's possessions, I came to know her through her things, her photographs, even her journal. Her journal? James looked startled. She documented her thoughts as her condition worsened. It was evident how deeply she loved you and your sister, despite the difficulties. I'd like to see that journal if possible. Of course, it's among the personal items I've kept separate. Their conversation shifted to practical matters. James explained that Elizabeth remained largely uninterested in their mother's possessions, focused instead on financial aspects of the estate. As their coffee concluded, James asked suddenly, "Did you find a sapphire necklace by chance? In a black velvet case. It was Dad's last gift to Mother." "Not yet," Dottie replied. "I haven't processed everything. I'll look specifically before our next meeting." That evening, Dottie searched through remaining jewelry items, particularly Eleanor's personal pieces. Hidden beneath Robert's Purple Heart box, wrapped in tissue paper, she discovered a small black velvet case she'd previously overlooked. Inside lay an exquisite diamond and sapphire necklace, a pendant featuring a large sapphire surrounded by diamonds suspended on a platinum chain. A note in Robert's handwriting accompanied it. "For my beloved Eleanor, who stood beside me through every battle. Our love outlasts even these precious stones." Tucked beside it, official documentation, a jewelry appraisal valuing the piece at $85,000 6 months before Robert's death. Dottie sat on her living room floor, surrounded by the remnants of Eleanor and Robert's love story, crying for people she'd never met, but now understood completely. This wasn't just a storage unit. It was a love letter from beyond the grave, a final gift from one family to another. The next day, James arrived at Dottie's home, visibly anxious. His corporate polish had diminished, replaced by the more vulnerable demeanor of a son confronting his mother's legacy. Dottie had prepared carefully, personal items displayed respectfully in her living room, the journal placed prominently, and military honors arranged in their proper order of precedence. James stood silently before the display, emotions playing across his face. He lifted photographs, examined medals, and gently touched items that clearly triggered memories. "You've treated these with remarkable respect," he said. "They deserve nothing less," Dottie responded, handing him Eleanor's journal. "You should read this privately. It contains your mother's thoughts during her decline, but also her reflections on her life with your father, her hopes for you and Elizabeth." "Was she angry with us?" he asked quietly. "Disappointed sometimes, confused often, but never without love," Dottie answered. "She understood that grief affects people differently." He nodded, clutching the journal. "There's one more thing," Dottie said, retrieving the velvet box. "You asked about this specifically." "Dad's sapphire," he whispered, tears forming. "He bought it on their last anniversary. I helped him select it." "It was hidden with his military honors," Dottie explained, showing him Robert's note. And it's quite valuable. It wasn't about the value for him, James responded. The sapphire matched her eyes. Dad always said Mother's eyes were his guiding stars through war and peace alike. The moment crystallized something for Dottie. Beyond financial value, beyond historical significance, these objects embodied human connections, relationships, memories, moments that mattered. James wiped his eyes. I apologize. This is more affecting than I anticipated. No apology needed, Dottie assured him. These are powerful reminders. They discuss practical matters. James wished to reclaim all personal items, photographs, documents, military honors, jewelry with sentimental associations. For everything else, he made an unexpected proposal. My mother would have appreciated how you've handled her possessions, he stated. The care you've taken, the respect you've shown, the business you've built, it honors her legacy rather than simply liquidating it. From his briefcase, James removed a check. This isn't for the items. Those are yours by legal right. This is from Mother's estate, which Elizabeth and I finally settled properly. She would have wanted this money to go to someone who honored her memory. Dottie stared at the check, stunned by the amount, $50,000. I can't accept this, she protested. There's one condition, James continued. Mother always supported military families and widows. She'd want you to remember that blessing comes with responsibility. The parallel between their situations struck Dottie forcefully. She too was a widow rebuilding life after devastating loss. Eleanor would understand her journey intimately. I'd like to offer a business proposition as well. My company regularly works with clients who need estate liquidation, downsizing assistance, or valuation of political and historical items. Your expertise would be valuable to them. The offer represented more than additional income. It was professional recognition of skills Dottie had developed through necessity and determination. I'll consider both offers, she said carefully. Before departing, James handed Dottie a final envelope. These are photos of Mother and Dad at various White House events wearing the jewelry you found. She'd want you to know the stories behind each piece. 1 year after purchasing Storage Unit 47, Dottie's life had transformed completely. The dining room operation had expanded to a small storefront called Second Chances Vintage, specializing in estate evaluation and political memorabilia. The Nixon brooch and Reagan compact had sold at a prestigious auction for $42,000 and $28,000 respectively, generating media coverage that enhanced her business reputation. With debts cleared and financial security established, Dottie had used part of Eleanor's gift to establish a small foundation supporting military widows and their children. Susan had graduated with honors, writing her thesis on Silent Power Women in American Politics, with Eleanor Fairchild as a primary case study. Matthew had blossomed, his confidence restored, helping in the shop on weekends and developing an eye for valuable collectibles. Most significantly, Dottie had found purpose beyond survival. Second Chances Vintage wasn't just about selling objects. It was about honoring the stories they represented, helping families preserve what mattered while respectfully repurposing what didn't. On the anniversary of the storage auction, Dottie received a package from James Fairchild. Inside, she found a small replica of Robert's Bronze Star, mounted in a shadow box with a simple inscription, "For courage when it mattered most." A note accompanied it. Mother wrote in her journal that she hoped her treasures would find someone who understood their true value. She was right. Your courage mirrors the spirit that earned Dad his medals, knowing when to risk everything for what truly matters. Dottie displayed the replica prominently in her shop, a daily reminder of interconnected lives and second chances. Below it, she placed a framed photo of Thomas, ensuring both men whose courage had influenced her journey remained present in her new life. That afternoon, a woman in her 50s entered the shop, eyes red from crying. "My husband just died," she said without preamble. "I don't know what to do next." Dottie smiled warmly, poured 2 cups of tea, and gestured to the chair across from hers. "Let me tell you a story about 2 remarkable women and some black bags full of secrets.